This is a massive problem. Apple has just been ordered to give the UK government access to encrypted iCloud backups, and this is not just for UK citizens, by the way. This is globally. In this video, we'll outline the implications for user privacy, the history of governments trying to bypass encrypted data, and the potential dangers of them using backdoors like this. Make no mistake, this could very well endanger not just your right to privacy, but also your personal security and safety. And please also bear in mind, this is not just a UK problem. This will be a worldwide problem if Apple decides to implement this, because they will implement it for every single Apple user. So we'll take a look at all of this. We'll see what the UK government is demanding, what they're trying to do, and will Apple actually cooperate with the UK government's order. So we'll take a look at all of this, but before we do, it takes just 2 seconds. If you're new around here and you enjoy this video, please do consider hitting the like and subscribe button down below. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, what is going on and what do we know so far? Well, my background is in IT, specifically AI, but I have to say I'm very concerned with the direction we're heading in currently. As mentioned at the start, Apple have been ordered by the UK government to let it access users' encrypted data. But here's the interesting thing. If you look here, the government will not confirm or deny the existence of this order. There are concerns that breaking encryption could allow bad actors to access people's data and pave the way for countries like China to make similar demands. So right there, this is a secret order. They're not going public with this. So the UK government wants to access protected data. But to give you an idea of the scale of this is data that is so sensitive, Apple don't even have access to it. Look at this. At the moment, only the Apple account holder, the person who owns the iPhone, the iPad, whatever it may be, they're the only ones who can access the data that the UK government is requesting. Not even the company itself, the US technology giants, can see it. And you can see why this is now becoming a contentious issue, because the UK government's demands could be seen, and again, I'm not speaking as a lawyer here, but it could be seen to infringe on the right to privacy and data protection. Apple, which makes iPhones, iPads, and Macs, has been issued with a technical capability notice. This order, which doesn't get published, as mentioned before, is said to require a blanket accessibility for the government to view people's encrypted data, both in the UK and abroad. What that basically means when it says blanket access, it's kind of saying covering everything, so they get to see everything. And for anybody wondering what legal jurisdiction the UK government have to make this order, it was made under something called the UK Investigatory Powers Act back in 2016. And the Act, according to what the Washington Post and Sky News are reporting here, says the orders can be applied to companies based outside of the UK. And with Apple being a US-based technology giant, it makes sense that this law was used to execute the order. But I find it absolutely hilarious that Apple decided to decline to comment on this whole situation, because under the Investigatory Powers Act, one key caveat of this law is you are not allowed to comment on the situation. So Apple, they can't choose to decline to comment. Legally, they're not allowed to comment on this situation. But if we continue with this, you can see that Apple did express concerns surrounding this law last year. Apple noted that the law gives the UK government the power to act as the world's regulator of security technology, something which could put the UK at odds with authorities like the European Union and the United States. They also mentioned the order would undermine human rights. The American company also said that an order to force decryption would undermine fundamentally human rights and potentially put the UK at odds with the European Court of Human Rights. There's no reason why the UK government should have the authority to decide for citizens of the world whether they can avail themselves of the proven security benefits that flow from end-to-end encryption. And this is where I have the big problem. Why on earth can the UK government make the decision to decide that users, Apple users from all over the world, lose the benefits of end-to-end encryption, security, and privacy, not lose those benefits while they're visiting the UK or living in the UK, not lose those benefits while they're doing business with a UK-based company or entity? No. They're going to lose those benefits simply for using Apple's products. That to me just seems like an attempt to I won't say impose, but really try and rewire the world order in terms of what is and isn't acceptable in terms of data privacy. And again, I make the point, if Apple themselves are not allowed to see this data, what on earth makes the UK government think they have the right to access this data? And just for the record, for any Android users out there who may be thinking you may get away with this because this is Apple, this doesn't apply to you currently, just think about it for a second. What happens if the UK government decides to go after Google and say we need to review the data on there? What happens if they decide to go after Samsung and say we need the encrypted data access there? Or any other Android using phone? If they decide to go after Apple and it's successful, then it will set the precedent for them to go after other big technology companies and see all of the encrypted data. And bear in mind, this is just the UK government, by the way. What's to stop other countries' governments doing the exact same thing? What's to stop the likes of the United States, China, the European Union? What's to stop them going after encrypted data in the UK? Do you want governments that you didn't elect, that you were not accountable to access all of your data? The Home Office said, "We do not comment on operational matters, including, for example, confirming or denying the existence of any such notices." Privacy International, on the other hand, called it an unprecedented attack on the private data of individuals. I happen to agree. "This is a fight the UK should not have picked," said the charity's legal director Caroline Wilson-Pallo. "This overreach sets a hugely damaging precedent and will embolden abusive regimes the world over." Again, we've just alluded to what's going to stop other countries from doing the exact same thing if the UK follows through with this request. But I obviously have some concerns about this. I mean, look at all the GDPR we've been implementing across the world now. And if you think of Europe, you think of the strongest privacy and security laws, data protection laws in the world. Are we really going to throw all that away? So I think it's pretty safe to say I have some big concerns about this path that the UK government wants to go down. Number one, the backdoor that they want to try and use to access Apple's encrypted data, it's not always going to be a backdoor for the good, I'm going to say it in quotation marks, the good guys to use. Because if the UK government can do it, what's to stop another country doing the exact same thing? As we saw in October of 2024. Chinese hackers were able to breach the US court's wiretap systems, a system that was built to intentionally weaken the secure communication of texts, emails, phone calls in the United States, to allow for a warranted law enforcement agency to tap into those phone calls or those texts. That was hacked by the Chinese. So the hackers had access to everything that the US law enforcement agency that was going to tap into those phone calls also wanted access to. So it's, again, that backdoor is never going to be something that's only used by the good guys. But secondly, I also have a concern with the enforcement of this power. If you think that the UK government is wrong for taking this action, and despite all of our concerns being raised and voiced with them, if they follow through with this, what's to stop law enforcement that's going to tap into our phone calls and our data from doing the exact same thing and ignoring our voices, ignoring our concerns? And I won't say, actually, you know what, I will say it. What's to stop them from abusing the power? How far are they going to go in terms of the data that they monitor? Are they going to look specifically for triggering words that may prove to be a threat to national security? Or are they going to start wandering into other aspects of our life, claiming that this is to protect and defend us from any foreign threats? What's to stop law enforcement officers using their surveillance powers for their own personal gain? It could be as serious as tracking down a family member or going off to stalk your ex-girlfriend. What's there to stop you from abusing the power? But rest assured, if the UK government gets access to this kind of power, other governments from around the world will be asking for exactly the same thing. And this won't just pertain to iCloud, by the way. They'll be asking for data from all different types of encrypted technologies. And by that point, you've opened Pandora's box. Because then, your data doesn't just belong to you. It belongs to the whole world. As Professor Matthew Green of the Johns Hopkins Institute put it, in the hierarchy of human privacy, your private files and private photos should remain your most important confidential possessions. And thirdly, how much is this to do with safety? And how much is it to do with control? So what are the reasons behind the UK government executing this order for Apple? Well, they're planning on using an emotional argument like, quote, protecting the children, identifying criminals, and keeping the public safe. However, Apple have already rebuked that by saying the following: scanning every user's privately stored iCloud data would create new threat vectors for data thieves to find and exploit. It would also inject the potential for a slippery slope of unintended consequences. Scanning for one type of content, for instance, opens the door for bulk surveillance and could create a desire to search other encrypted messaging systems across content types. In other words, it's got nothing to do with safety, but it's got everything to do with mass surveillance. Governments will be able to use this system for anything and everything. Now, I don't want to make this a political issue, but let's say governments made it illegal for you to speak out against them. Let's say this happened in the UK. You then decided to fly abroad to somewhere like America or Europe and speak out against the government over there. Now, when you come back, you find out that the government has tapped into your encrypted data. They found out who you've been calling, who you've been texting, what you've been texting, and what you were going to America for. That then doesn't stop them from bringing you back here and punishing you as soon as you come back. And again, you ask the question, how far can you go without the government tracking and spying on your movement? Because this system, as it stands, would currently allow them to do this on a much bigger scale. But let's see what happens, because while Apple are having to make the changes with the procedures and allow the UK government access to the encrypted data through a backdoor, they are appealing this decision. So who knows what could happen in the coming months, and I promise I will bring you all the updates as soon as I have them. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. Are you based in the UK? What do you think about the UK government wanting to access encrypted personal data of yours? Or are you from abroad? What do you think of the UK government's decision? Does this set a dangerous precedent for your government and your country? Let me know your thoughts down below. As usual, I'll be returning soon in the coming weeks, but until then, see you all later and take care.